Hi, and welcome to the AoEC webinar series in preparation for the STCC 3-day program. I'm John Leary-Joyce, founder and principal trainer of the AoEC. So let's get cracking. In this first webinar, we will cover distinction between team and a working group, what we mean by STC, including a definition, the 6 lenses of systemic practice, and the Hawkins 5 disciplines of high-performing teams. First, I'd like to say a little about the evolution of systemic team coaching. In 2010, Peter Hawkins and I collaborated to create the pilot systemic team coaching delivery. Now, we did that to address the growing demand from organizations for team coaching. Now, since then, Peter and Hilary Lyons and myself, we've developed and refined the Systemic Team Coaching Certificate Program and the Diploma Program. And in the 10 years since then, over 3,000 students have completed both these programs globally. Through 2019 and 20, we've contributed to the professional bodies, that's the ICF, EMCC, AC, creating standards and competencies for team coaching. The need for team coaching is growing exponentially, and we are delighted you've decided to join this program as part of fulfilling that demand. Let's start with the distinction between team and working group. So this is a hotly debated topic, but using the ICF description of teams and working groups, we can see that interdependent teams, a group of people with a common purpose and shared agenda, working interdependently with a shared context to achieve the required goals. And that, in contrast to a working group, or sometimes people call a community of practice, it's a collection of individuals. Again, they're sharing a common interest, experience, or a skill so that they learn and develop from each other. So let's take that forward into looking at how do we develop teams. First of all, how often do you see this as true in teams? 1 + 1 + 1 = 6. So you've got 6 individual team members and they produce an aggregate performance to the level of 6. But how often have you seen this level of performance? That in actual fact, the 6 people who are challenging, competing, contradicting each other, where the performance end up as 2. And sadly, a lot of the research indicates that this is the case. Really, what we're looking for is that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and that the combined effort of the members of the team produce something much bigger than what they could create on their own. So, as individual coaches, we'd be focusing primarily on the ones, the individuals. And for team coaching, we're looking at the pluses, what happens between the individuals. Now, I'd like to share with you an example, a piece of research, very dramatic, looking at the work that Michael West has done in relation to surgery teams, where working in real teams actually does save lives. So Michael West had 3 team criteria for his research. First, a clear and common objective. Then this notion of interdependency, how the surgery teams connected and worked from each other. And then this ability to review and reconnect and work over how we're doing, what's worked, what hasn't. Now, here is the results, the graph that shows you the mean mortality index, those people who have died as a result of surgery. And you can see those in the first column, the 0 to 39%, who have used some of these criteria. You can see there's a high mortality rate. And then those who have implemented, say, 40 to 59%, 60%, they've used that amount of the criteria. You'll see that it drops, the mortality index drops. And then a dramatic drop when you look at the 60 to 79%, and then the 80 to 98%, and then The 100% is the lowest, where these surgery teams are using these 3 criteria 100% of the time. Now, a fantastic example of what happens whenever individuals work together effectively as a team. And I know this has been replicated with many other teams where there have been crisis or emergency settings and shown the same sort of results. So let's move on and look at what is a high-performing team. And we've taken the research of Katzenbach and Smith way back in 93 to come up with this definition that has really stood the test of time. So a small number of people, as we've seen, like a surgery team, with complementary skills. So creating a level of difference and contribution to the team effort. And again, with a common purpose. So there's a clarity of direction, a joint endeavor. And then a set of goals for which they are held accountable and feel as if they are totally responsible for. So that was way back with Katzenbach and Smith. And then we also see from the work that Peter Hawkins has done way back in 2011, so a high-performing team also needs to effectively meet and communicate in order to build the quality of connection, morale, and alignment, to engage with the key stakeholders, and this is the key component of the systemic part of systemic team coaching, in a way that grows performance, both for the team and the organization. And finally, the focus on the constant learning and evolution of the team, both of the team members and of the organization as a whole. So let's come back to looking at what are the elements of systemic team coaching. So if we look at individual coaching, so this has been in the past what people have considered team coaching, coaching a set of individuals within the team, helping them develop their connection, their performance, but working individually. And what we know now from these last 10 years, that the coaching, the skills and the capabilities, the philosophy and the ethics of coaching, individual coaching, really underpins the whole of team coaching. And there's this other element, group coaching. A lot of questions about what is group coaching. Well, it's where the coach is there to support individuals in a group context, usually those who have similar skills, but they're wanting to share their learning. So a group of HR directors getting together to look at how they can improve the HR function, or working with different stakeholders to bring them together and to clarify what the key issues are that they need to do. And a key skill for a systemic team coach is being able to manage this group coaching capability. And then there's team facilitation. Again, a lot of discussion and a lot of different perspectives on what facilitation is. For our purposes here, we are describing team or group facilitation as being able to take the team through a task or a process. So there is a specific output. Generally, facilitation happens in a block of maybe 1 or 2 days, and there is a specific outcome to the engagement. And then team building, which has been around a long time. It's looking at the interpersonal dynamics. How do we build the relationships and qualities of connections within the team in order to create its effectiveness? And then finally, organization development. Again, this speaks to the aspect of team coaching that is about the system and those skills and capabilities from organizational development or change management to understand the team and the different ways in which elements of the system connect. The distinction between systemic team coaching and organizational development consulting is that the team coach is working with the team as the client, and all of the other teams in the system are stakeholders to it. So what we're saying then is systemic team coaching has these 5 components. It's based around our practice and philosophy and ethics of individual coaching. it's about being able to coach individually in a group and with different members from different parts of the organization. It's about facilitating the task and the process, about building the connection of people together, and about seeing the wider system. So let's come back to a definition of systemic team coaching. It's a process of coaching the whole team together and apart. And this is an important part because a lot of the time, of course, the team is working and in its own divisions and domains, but actually is separate. So how does the team stay together and focus on its team tasks while it's working on other parts of the organization? So coaching the team together and apart over a designated period of time. So that'd be 3, 6, 9, 12 months. The idea being, like individual coaching, the change happens over time. And then this reflects back on the work of Michael West and Katzenbach and Smith. There's a common purpose. Now, if you have a complementary team, that means you've got differences. So bringing that together to get optimum value. To look at the notion of shared leadership. And on the program, we'll talk a lot more about the notion of how do we build collaborative leadership to achieve the performance objectives, the outputs, the results, and engaging with the wider stakeholder group, which is a key part of the systemic approach, in that we jointly transform the whole organization. So let's now look at the 6 lenses of the systemic team coach. And I'll do that by way of a story. I got a call from the chairman of an organization who was saying that there was a new member into the executive team that was not fitting in, and would I do some coaching, some individual coaching? Yes, normal assignment, picked it up, agreed to have a chemistry session and discussed the issues. And it became clear that there was a clash between the team leader and this new person. And we discussed it and we thought, well, it would be good to get the team leader engaged. And so we moved then onto an interpersonal dynamic, looking at how their relationship was constructed, evolving. And what came from that is that the dynamic between the team leader and this individual was expanded beyond that. In actual fact, there was a key issue with the team dynamics. And I suggested that we maybe move the focus of the coaching from the individual to the team. The team leader was happy to do that. We recontracted and moved towards a team coaching scenario where I met with the team to look at how the team was engaging and working together to fulfill its requirements. What we discovered from that team building, you could say, exercise was that there was some level of unclarity about what the key objectives were. What was the team there to deliver? What were stakeholders expecting, and what did they need to be delivering to? So we set up then a facilitation around event around its key objectives, the tasks, the strategy, the performance. And what emerged from that event was the fact that the board itself was not clear about what was required of it. And so it looked like the next step was to move out further and have a joint meeting, a group coaching session with the chairman and the CEO, and in actual fact, this new person and one other of the team. So we met together as a 4 and mapped out what the board, through the chairman, was expecting of the CEO. What that uncovered was that the board was itself not at all clear about where it was going. There had been changes in the regulation. There were lots of other environmental issues, as we've got here. The pestle influence, the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental issues. And as I'm speaking, the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, would have been something that might have influenced this whole organization and its structure. But in this case, it was well before that. There were some key social and political and technological issues going on that the board were not clear about. And that helped to, this whole process helped to clarify what the team needed to be addressing, and in the end helped this individual who had in a previous role been very familiar with the wider environment, had helped them integrate and come together as a team and get clear where they were going. So you see here the value of holding these 6 lenses as a team coach. So what I'd like to do now is introduce you to the Hawkins 5 disciplines of high-performing teams. Now, when I first met and discussed this with Peter in 2010, I was hugely impressed by this model. I had had a number of different ideas and models floating in my head that I was using for team coaching, but this seemed to encapsulate in a really clear and directive way about how you could proceed to understand the issues within team coaching, and specifically systemic team coaching. So let's look at the first 2 dimensions. So who is inside the team and who is outside the team. And if we expand a little more, we're looking at, is this a team or a group? Thinking back to our very first, the start of this, who is in the team? And you might think that this was straightforward, but in actual fact, there's a lot of complexity in understanding who is part of the team, especially in these days of matrix teams. What type of team is it? Is it a project team, short-lived, or is it a strategic team or a management team? What are the roles that this team plays in the organization? Is it face-to-face or is it virtual? And we've seen the rise now of virtual working and a mixture of both. And then how does the team see itself in relation to the whole organization? So first of all, we're clarifying who's inside the team, and then we're looking at who's outside the team. Who are the key stakeholders? Who does the team report up to? And what is the connection like between the team and these different stakeholders? And then what's happening in the wider context? Now, we can illustrate this using what we call a stakeholder map. So here we have the team. This is our client that we're working with, the leaders and the members of it. And here we have the primary stakeholder outside the team. And we have other stakeholders, direct reports, customers, suppliers, peers, maybe regulators. So here we're looking at the inside the team and the different components outside the team. Let's look at the second 2 domains, the task focus and the people process. And here we're looking at the task as being the vision, the mission, the purpose, the strategy and objectives, roles and responsibilities, operations, systems, processes, everything to do with what the team needs to do in order to deliver it to its objectives. And then the people process, we're looking at the relationships with the team and with stakeholders, the dynamics of the team and its stages of development, the authority and accountability, and finally, the nature of leadership and followership. So the second 2 domains, task and people process. If we put this together as a 4-box model, the first 4 disciplines, stakeholder expectations. So what is, especially the key stakeholder, expecting the team to deliver? And then the team needing to understand what it has to do in these areas in order to satisfy the needs of the stakeholders. And then below the people side of it, the nature of the relationships, interpersonal dynamics, and of course, finally, stakeholder relationships. How are those, that people connection, how is that happening in a way that will help the team to deliver? So here we have our 4-box model, and we know from our days in organizations that having a 4-box model puts the worlds to rights. There's another component here that we've talked about is the wider environment that sits around the team in the organization. Again, the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. And with our COVID-19 backdrop, we have maybe health should be in there, health of the organization and even the nation. So these are the 4 disciplines. And finally, we have the 5th discipline, which is team learning, reflecting and learning from the experience in all of the other 4 disciplines. In summary, what we've covered here is clarifying a distinction between a team and a working group. We've got a clear definition of what we see as teams and specifically systemic team coaching. We've looked at this systemic perspective, the 6 lenses from the individual right through to the wider context. And we've looked specifically at Peter Hawkins's 5 disciplines framework. Now, all of this will be taken forward into the 3-day program, and you'll be able to revisit this and see how it works out in practice. Thank you.